Hello and welcome to another Edinburgh Northern Cockerel cast. On episode 26, we are joined by a very active member of the New Haven and Leith community. When not tweeting to City of Edinburgh Council about which bins are overflowing, this former second 15 captain can be found in the Haven Cafe posting photos of his breakfast that day. A formidable prop in his time, he would often be seen creating more of an upward than a forward motion, making his way ruck to ruck. He hung up his boots for a fifth time a few years ago, but in his leisure time now bags Monroe's and follows a football team to every deprived town across the Central Belt. Now enjoying a new normal Freshers Week, he is Mory's finest northerner. It's Craig Lawson. Hi Craigie, how are you?
Hi, are you gents? You all right?
Fantastic.
Excellent. Cheers.
Thanks for the introduction. That's pretty much succinctly summed me up in one go. It's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
I think that's Jason's best attempt, to be honest. That's ticked every single box with comedy and facts.
I had to leave out quite a lot of your interests though, Craigie, but I'm sure we'll get on to them.
Excellent. Well, welcome on to the pod, Craig. What have you got to drink with us this evening?
Well, my best lockdown discovery, pineapple milkshake IPA. It's absolutely superb.
Oofed.
It's by far the best thing I found in lockdown. I think I've tried every craft beer Asda's had to offer, and this is by far the best.
I'll have to get it stocked in the bunker then.
Yeah, you can get bored of pale ale, and I didn't have a tenant, so I actually went out recently, so that's been my staple for since March.
Fantastic. Yourself, Jason?
Yeah, something slightly less tasty, but very relevant from the Cairngorm Brewery is the Cairngorm Gold, just up the road from where you grew up, Craigie.
Jason, I'm going to stop you there. Sheepshagger Gold is their finest creation.
What did I say, Michael? What did I say?
We had a whole conversation about buying that, and I thought better of it.
No, Sheepshagger is far better than Gold's good, but Sheepshagger is my drink of choice from there. The
delivery time also proved a slight hiccup, so sadly. I'm going to have really boring. I have no Grampian themed drinks at all. I've just got a cup of apple and pear spiced tea because it's a Wednesday, and a glass of fizzy water. So, also I have to keep my wits about you sometimes with football, Craigie. So you never know where this conversation might go. So I have to stay straight and narrow.
Yeah, the good thing is I'm a student now, so I can drink whenever I want. Pretty
Indeed.
much.
We're getting on.
As a 7-year civil servant, that's never stopped me either. So
the responsibility's gone for a little while, so it's quite good to actually think, well, I can go have a drink tonight. But
fantastic.
So
I'm in labs tomorrow, so that'll be fun.
Yes, Craig, a little change. So tell us then how lockdown has been treating you and what you're up to.
Well, so I took redundancy from British Gas a few months back. Mm-hmm. Kind of looked for a job, but didn't really try that hard. Knocked interviews back a couple of times, pissed off the SSS for not taking interviews. But I was trying to get into teaching, so that was my primary focus, and it was a bit of a struggle because my degree is quite old. And I had to go through quite a rigorous interview with the two course guys, but I think because I'd worked with young people before, they took me on, and because I'd sort of dealt with apprentices for about 2 years at my old work, so I'd done the teaching part with young people. So that kind of, and then I started going on about some of the sort of stories I'd come across. They kind of stopped me and said, "Well, okay." And then about an hour later, I got offers for chemistry and biology, but I chose biology because chemistry balanced equations doesn't fill me full of joy.
Yes, I saw your matriculation
and the periodic table, nah, not for me.
Sorry, Craig, I interrupted you there. Saw your matriculation cards from obviously this year, but your original one, I think, was issued the year I was born. That doesn't make
no way.
Cool.
Well, I can remember once we were walking along, I think it was after a party, and I told a story about a young lady had done me a service behind the changing rooms in the Meadows, and you thought, "Oh, that's the year I was born." So that was quite an interesting sort of generational thing.
Where are these change rooms? Are you talking about the pavilion?
Yeah.
I think that's now a vegan cafe or like vegetable hub. Yeah.
This girl wasn't a vegetarian, to be fair.
How did you find Fresh, or how are you finding? I think today was the first day. How's Freshers Week going so far?
Well, it's kind of very different. I mean, we're the only course in Sighthill at the moment, so we're getting 3 weeks of face-to-face teaching, and then it's going to be a mix between face-to-face and online. So, because of the nature of teaching, they wanted us in for this sort of 3 weeks earlier. So I got that for 3 weeks. I get 8 weeks, and I might by November I might teaching young people in a classroom environment.
That's cool.
So having Captain Northern 2s, it's probably going to be quite an easy thing to do.
I can imagine. I meant to message Jason this before we started, but I wanted you to contrast the entertainment from your first Freshers Week to now. What have they got lined up for you versus what they had in 1989?
They've got nothing. Literally, I remember it was 88 I first went. In 88 when I first went, literally, I sat with one guy who I spent the next 2 years trying to get rid of. I think we went lectures in the morning, went to the pub, never went back to lecture till I think the following Monday, essentially. Whereas today, we're straight in labs tomorrow, and I've got sort of teaching stuff tomorrow afternoon, so I'll be straight in there. And then Friday's a reading day, then Monday's a reading day, then Tuesday I'm back in. So it's actually all go. So I won't be in the pub with a group of people, because it's kind of like you've got some youngsters or younger people, and then you've got some older, and there's actually somebody who looks older than me, which I was like really relieved about. I was just like, thank you.
Fair play. No, I obviously my input on that was, I remember Tommy Riley played my Freshers Week, and I knew him quite well from back in Glasgow, and it's dreadful, absolutely dreadful. It was I think Freshers Week was one of the worst experiences of my life. So much drinking. I don't know about you, Jason. Do you remember your first Freshers Week?
Vaguely, yeah. I think we missed the pub crawl just by being too ill. From the night.
Did you get in anywhere, Jason? Did you get in anywhere? Because you looked about 12 anyway back then, before you got the beard. So you must have like ID constantly like this, going, "Yes, I'm 18. Yes, I'm 18."
Sounds about right. From memory.
So a big T-shirt with your ID on it, so they can let you
in. I've seen the photos of you aged 18, Jason. You just look sickly. So all that lack of sunlight and growing up in Londonderry. So you've obviously touched on your background a bit there, Craig. We'll move on to your backstory. Do you want to tell us about where you're from, what you did previously? I know you touched on Scottish Gas there.
Yeah. So I'm from a place called Grantown-on-Spey, which is kind of, what's best to describe it? It was pretty cool back in the day, but it's now like a retirement village for like a lot of oldies from down south. So it's kind of lost its magic, and it's full of like young kids who are just a little bit feisty now. So that's quite interesting. Last time I was home, so I moved here in '88 to start studying. Went to Napier. That was good fun. Then I did a postgrad at Heriot Watt, which was all right, but it was IT, and I just didn't know what to do that. So I took a summer job at British Gas. It's lasted 24 years, pretty much. And that's my backstory. So went to British Gas on a temporary contract. Should have been sacked after 6 months, but I wasn't. And next thing you know, I'm getting redundancy 24 years later. So there was literally, and in between that was just a sort of whirlwind of drinking, shit shifts, good shifts, shit shifts, going to India. What else? Going to India, worked in Manchester, worked in London. So I did quite a lot, and it was like the Wild West back then. NRC was actually quite good fun before it became every second getting accounting for. We used to like sleep in the toilets on a Saturday and stuff. Nowadays, you get away with that. People will be looking for you. So modern life isn't goodish at all. Sometimes it's more fun in the old days.
Good stuff.
I don't use that statement.
Yeah. So obviously a wee bit of travelling and whatnot there then, but so your rugby background, tell us really when you sort of first picked up a ball and any previous clubs.
Well, I first picked up a rugby ball in 1995 because I played a lot of football. I played a little bit. We had a little bit at our school, but not very much. And I had dabbled with the Edinburgh dance scene for a little while, and then realised that certain things weren't for me. So I went up to play touch rugby just to get a bit fitter, which led into playing rugby at British Gas. So that's my experience. So I started playing British Gas, training there. Played a few games mainly against Northern 4s or 5s or 4s or 5s. And we once played the Police, who beat us 98-0. Stuart Reid was playing number 8 for the Police, who's a Scotland player, an ex-Scotland player at the time. That wasn't fun. And I played second row, and our scrum just went backwards all day. And literally, Stuart Reid just basically scummed on his own. It was just embarrassing. So walking off that park, I thought walking off that park was the most dismal experience at rugby, until a story I'll come to later.
Looking forward to it. It might frighten you, Craigie, that I took up rugby in 1995 as well, as a mini at Hillhead Jordan Hill. So we can bond over that, I feel. Probably very differing experiences.
Yeah, but I picked up rugby ball in this sort of, in the background at the time where British Gas office was. You could see the train spotting flats. So you could see the flats where Tommy died, so that's where a rugby park pitch was. So you could look at and you could see like the old jigsaw flats. So you had probably a nice salubrious background. I was like heroin hell.
I was going to say that's very contrasting to luscious Glasgow playing fields with slightly expensive houses around it. So we have no bonding on that. So you've not really touched on whether or not you're into rugby before you started playing. Is that the case? Is that fair?
No, I watched the old Five Nations quite a lot when I was younger, sort of from when I was 10 onwards.
Okay.
When Scotland seeded Ireland every single game. I think from the 80s through about the mid-90s, I think we hardly lost a game Ireland.
Wilson talks about that a lot.
Wilson talks a lot anyway, let's be fair.
Very true. Are there any players that you admired when you were kind of grew up and watching?
Jim Rennick, Roy Laidlaw, John Rutherford. Let's think, second row. There was Damien Cronin as well. There's Gav, Scott Hastings. So there's quite a few back in the day. I can't remember the name of the winger, but we had good wingers before Kenny Logan, funnily enough. And then along came Kenny Logan, the wingers were a bit shit after that.
What's the name of the Scottish winger who's got an unpronounceable Welsh surname?
Is it Tuchelo? Ivan Tuchelo?
Yeah, he was quality.
Yeah, I think he played at Barramere.
Ah.
Could be wrong, but there's Tuchelo, he was good. And there was it Rory Duncan or another guy that was on the wing, was quite good back in the day? I can't remember. I can't really remember too many.
Yes. Tommy Stranger too.
Stranger.
Yeah, Stranger. Yep. Then you not work in the bank down in Hoyk after it as well. You got a Lions call up while he's working in the bank in Hoyk. One of the coolest when the Lions were actually quite cool and interesting.
Well, speaking of that, I remember actually reading, this is more to Jason's taste than ours, I think, Craigie. William McBride was the bank manager in some provincial Ulster town while the Lions captain. Like, and he'd be chatting to people and he was off to South Africa the following week. It's like better days, Hylason days. And
they went away for like 16 weeks or something, didn't they? Ridiculous amount of time.
Because it was cheap.
I met Willie John at a wedding over in Ireland in about 2006 or something, and he had the biggest stand you've ever seen. Huge. Absolutely huge.
I've served him dinner actually in a hotel when I was younger. Massive man. Yeah. And
he was even as an old man, he was huge. You're kind of going, oh my god, this. But you could see there's something about him that's quite charismatic as well. You can see why players followed him and why. Did you not captain 2 Lions tours?
Yep. Including, I think, the infamous 88 call one as well. Maybe not. Is that?
That's 74. Is it? 74?
Yeah, that McBride's time. Yeah, because he talks about. In. Yeah, he talks about a lot in his book about how aggressive South Africa were and just having the same principles back to them that they gave out to us, which is a really, really good book. I'd recommend it. I'm waiting for my credits from Waterstones for recommending that if anyone buys it for Christmas. So.
So back to your own playing career, Craig. How was it then that you learned about the best club ever, and when do you think this was?
So at 95, I started playing for British Gas, and we used to play Northern 4/5s a lot. So we used to have pitches down at Granton, so we played Northern quite a few times. So there was this one particular game we played, and the pitch was on a slope, so I was coming downhill. So the ball got kicked off, and I caught it from a sort of kick-off. And just like ran half length of the pitch and scored. Dave McLean screaming, drop it, trip. my mate gave me shit to drop the ball, so you would never hit the end of it. So I scored this try. It was, to be fair, the defence was pretty weak anyway. It was like sort of barroom doors. I just ran through two people and they just kept going, expecting to be tackled. But it was just, they were a bunch of old men. So I think Mike Cathcart could be the fittest guy in the team at that particular point. So Mike wasn't going to catch me. So I think after that, Gareth Topham and Tony Globes, I was drinking with them, and they suggested him that Northern for one game. So there was three of us came down a week later, played North Berwick. One guy broke his hand, another guy broke some ribs, and I kind of went, that's quite good fun. And then I came for another week because Gareth and Tony took me to Fibber McGee's, which is now the Standard, whatever it's called. Was Laughing Duck before that, so went there a few times, and then that was it. I think about 99 about pre-season training for the first time ever, which was quite and the infamous 2-minute runs.
Mm.
Yeah, that was so probably 99 was probably the first time I took it seriously. Before then I was playing sort of 4s and 3s and 4s, and then sort of 99 I thought I'll go to train and see what happens. And then from then on I just kind of went kind of 4s, 3s, 2s, 1s, back to 2s, up to 1s, back to spiritual home. So it was like a bit of bounce back and forth.
Yeah.
You have had a very enviable and impressive Northern career. So you've seen the club in all its incarnations over the last decade and a half or so. What do you think is Northern's unique selling point? What made you stay?
I think it's a hard one, that, because it's the people that make you stay. I mean, for me, it was Globesley and Topham, and then I met Kenny, and then people like Ainsley came into the club. There was a guy like Mike Welsh, there was Drew Matheson, Ollie Legg, just a heap of folk just at the club at the right time. Lukey, Jamie Kerno, and a heap of other keepers like Bodge and sort of Stevie Lucock. There's a heap of guys, and we just all kind of hung out. Went uptown, and these are pre-ball these days, so it was normally so that you got to Finnegan's Wake quite a lot, and this was definitely pre-Baldies. And that's when pre-Baldies, when Baldies was good as well, before it became full of teenagers and sort of like underagers.
Maybe we're all just getting old.
I mean, my first time in Baldies, you know Dino, Jace?
Yep.
Well, Dino took us in, and it was like, and at that time it was a restaurant, so at about 10 to midnight, they put everything, the lights off and everything, and it goes quiet, and I'm about to he says, just stay here, Craigie. So next thing, the music goes on, and people start coming down the stairs. So obviously at that point, it didn't have a license to be open late. So I remember leaving at God knows what time, through the kitchen, and through a set of bins. So it's kind of like the Batmobile leaving, so I had to leave through the bins of the side street and come round. And I think the police knew about it for a while before they got their licence. I think that's when Raymond was the manager, potentially. When you poured Jack Daniels like that, and you got that much coke in it.
Good measure.
Yeah. Well, me and Cheatley thought so.
That's your perfect rock star, if I'm honest.
Good stuff. So we'll get on to your favourite Northern nights out then. Back onto the pitch. Can you tell us maybe about your sort of favourite game or tournament or season that you've played in, even your choice?
Right, so my favourite season we won the league was at 2005-2006. I can't. So that was great fun. But the games were all pretty easy. I think we hardly lost one. I think we didn't lose one. So it was one of these easy seasons. But a couple of games sprung to mind. So there was one when I was kind of playing for the twos, and I got invited. Well, they didn't have anyone to sub in a Scottish Cup tie against Mid Argyll over in Ardrishig. So I get a phone call at 9 in the morning. Can you come and play? I'm over to a sort of buggery sort of thing. Lying in bed, and I suppose I'll come. So it's a bus trip across the west coast, and it's a horrendous bus trip, but it was good fun. So we get there, and I don't want to play. So somebody got injured, so I went on just about half time, and then Lukey scored this great try. Well, he didn't score a great try. It's from 5 yards out, a slow motion dummy, and he played well that whole game. So he was like a dog with two cocks essentially. So it came to man of the match, and I got it. basically for turning up hangover and playing. And to this day, he's still a bit about to this day. He'll probably tell you himself. He still mentions it now and again. So I still his moment ago. He scored a fair enough. It was a dummy, a slow dummy. But me getting man of the match, didn't like it. And then we were signing autographs in a pub, same with Edinburgh Rugby at one point as well. It was an absolute nuts trip. I think we won the game. It's the only game I've ever been to where we had to take kite bats off the park, which was another bizarre one because it was on a little hill and obviously cows had been on there at some point.
I emphasise your teammate there actually, because I think in my first season we played Inverleith. No, second season we played Inverleith at home and I scored twice, including a tap and go from 5 metres out to go through a pile of Inverleith forwards to score in a derby, may I add as well. Jason had been sent off for foul play as captain, and he gave man of the match to Wilson instead of me.
But Wilson's his kind of dad, though. His father figure.
Yeah, but I feel that kind of, at that point I was growing into my role as Jason's best man. He hadn't realised it yet. So, I've never forgiven him for it. So I completely empathise your teammate there, some people get all the goals. Wilson hadn't done anything. I was the one who was throwing myself into massive Inverleith forwards,
And there's another game we played, I think it's a Twos game at Trinity. And I was Twos captain and Johnny Alden was down. Now, Johnny Alden's like, if you ever need a man on the sidelines who knows rugby, Johnny's the best man. So we're down at half time and we're doing really well. So we're on the park in a huddle. And Johnny says, you'll win this game. I think we're a couple of tries down. So we're like, and he just talks like, you're fitter than them, you'll win you're fitter than them. The classic comment, Northern fit another team. And we won the game. And that's another game I remember really well because I think there's a picture appears on Facebook every so often that I put on and we were all knackered. But I think Blue did a slideshow thing of it with a little kind of thing somewhere. But that was a game I sort of really remember as well because that was good fun. And then on the flip side, getting relegated at Broughton on a Sunday wasn't fun. That was a miserable, cold afternoon. Just that was just horrible. But it's been more good than bad, to be fair.
I don't think I've ever played a 15s game at Broughton in the sun or anything other than rain and wind.
It's a horrible park, horrible pitch.
But it's weird because there's no trees around it really. It's completely exposed to the sky. It just must be that the sun doesn't shine on that part of Edinburgh.
And it's just it's a Sunday as well, playing a Sunday, so you can't go out and get rat-arsed on the Saturday night because you're responsible for work the next day. So on a Sunday, you're just sitting there having a cup of pints and this is just rubbish. Might as well go home now. My week started off in a high. So it was just brutal. But I think we won the league the next season. So it was kind of a bit of a yo-yo. Recognise that one, Jason? Up and down, up and down, up and down.
There's a good few seasons that, yeah. So you mentioned scoring a try against Northern. Any tries that you scored for Northern that stand out then?
There's one was one we were playing against Inverleith up at Inverleith, and I did my classic sort of like my 5 yards sort of pirouette over the line. So reaching the hand out. So I put it over, and Wilson's just looking at me and said, "Don't look so happy." He said, "If you had missed that, I had a big overlap there. So there wasn't even a congratulations. Just like if you had missed that, I would have been happy." And I'm moment before you, and I just said, "Sorry, Wilson." But he was right. He was right in what he said. I mean, I had to do the whole kind of arm over just to get it over kind of thing. I think I scored another one at Trinent, but it wasn't that good. But the ball came out of a rack, went flying out of a rack, and everyone thought the referee had blown. So I kept running and just touched the ball down, and I got the try. Those are the two that sort of really stick out. The rest of them are probably just little sort of 5 yards dive over the line.
It's actually quite interesting because you talk about that. Everyone who's come on has talked about 5 yard efforts and stuff, but they all count at the end of the day.
Especially as a front row, I'm not running from the halfway line. I'm not Alex Laird. I'm not running like from own touchline down through the park, going through 20 tackles and put the ball down. 5 yards is my maximum pace.
I mean, I was a winger and I scored from 5 yards all the time. That was my bread butter as well. We'll move on. You've mentioned a few players there over the course of the interview so far, and I feel that you've played for so long that it's unfair to confine you to just the front row. Mm-hmm. So we'll give you the opportunity. Do you want to pick 3 or two players that you really been privileged to play alongside for Northern?
Well, I think front row was Dave Peace at the start when I started propping. I mean, Dave probably carried me for half a season because I got the knock on the shoulder from Pete Wellington. Craig, do you fancy playing front row? Do you have a choice? No. So basically in the scrimmage room, but Dave Peace taught me so much, and he basically carried me for half a season. He taught me like body position low and hard. Don't get annoyed by people. Just don't do anything fancy, which is also I went. Just don't do anything fancy. Keep it strong. And he was probably the best prop I played with. Lukey's pretty special too, to be fair. His technique was second to none, and he was quite, for a big man who liked Limp Bizkit, he was quite quick around the park, which was quite a sort of which is one of these things. So Lukey was good. And then if I look sort of in the backs, probably it's got to be Alex Laird, really. Alex and Drew, they were two of the best centres I played with. They played together. You win every game because Drew's tidy, never missed a tackle, always put the ball backwards. And if Alex got the ball, you pretended to run, but you didn't. You just kind of sort of like jogged because you knew he was through everything. And if I'm thinking back row players, then Russell Davidson was a tremendous player, number 8, big stuff, ex-Zimbabwean, great player to play with. I've got a love for Hardman as well. Not a penalty machine that people say yes, but I like playing Hardman. Ben Forbes as well, probably the best 7 I played with. And Forbes was some player. Likes getting naked on tour as well, but Forbes was probably the best 7 I played with was Forbesy. And so that's probably the ones that sort of jump out. And then you've got the odd enforcer type like Big Carl and John O'Leary who had their own sort of special way of dealing with things. They're always good to have in your team.
I was waiting for you to mention me as an enforcer, Craig, but we'll move on.
Don't think you were getting in there, Jace. Sadly,
Jace, you're in my thoughts, but I think Forbesy just wins it, and he's got better part than you as well. And he got me an England top. He got me an England top last year in Kennedorm, so that's a thing that you probably managed to get me to do.
Good cheers, Craigie. So tell us then about a few more of your Northern nights out or events that we've hosted. Any memorable ones?
Oh, goodness me. Chile's probably the biggest culprit for me not remembering many, to be fair. Because it normally involved me and him, Jack Daniels somewhere, and then waking up at home with a bag of messages from the co-op in Stockbridge when it was still there. I don't know, it's the Heart Shop now. It used to be a great shop. But I think sort of a couple of nights that spring to mind was maybe there's one night, Johnny Alden used to have his work to use down at the bunker, so it was also for a free beer. So it was the night before a trial game. We were playing at Branmuir, so I left the bunker at 5 a.m. Absolutely blitz, and Cheatley's full of joys of spring because he'd retired by this point. Oh, Craig, you're playing rugby in 9 hours, you'll be fine. So I got up to Branmuir, and that's when they had the old wooden changing rooms. And it was hot as fuck, and I'm still drunk at that particular point. So on the pitch, first scrum, they just literally walked us off the scrum. I think Breaking Glazing, Craig is still pissed. Hauled off after 20 minutes, just absolutely just broken man. In my bed by 8 o'clock that night, I think, that was a big one. But a lot of them, they mingle into sort of quite a lot, to be fair. I think the ones on tour are more kind of, are more fun, because you guys have been on some mental tours, but I've only been in a couple. I think the tour ones are probably more fun, if I remember rightly. You know, there's one night myself, Lukey, Jamie Kernel, and there's somebody else. So Johnny Alden pulls us aside and basically says, "Can you guys, can you splinter group? Let's leave the main guys. We'll find an Irish pub." So we're in sort of centre of Gdansk, find the Irish pub. We're there sort of a couple of hours, entrenched the locals, having a good night, and all the guys appear about 2 hours later, and literally couldn't believe we'd been sitting there all night. So I think that night I ended up in the toilet with some young Czech girl. So I walked out of the toilet with just my kilt on, and I'm walking through the streets of Gdansk with just a kilt on, which isn't a pretty sight, to be fair. And then luckily the big dog and I think Doogie in a taxi heading home, so they took pity on me and stopped me. They stopped the taxi and took me home, but that's a mental night, that one. But that was a good fun one. I think that's the same tour that was it Wilson, Ed Dalgleish, Who else is there? I think we, Lukey, Lewis, and our 2 wee guys ended up playing a beach rugby tournament, and the Ukrainian national team appeared, and they're all monsters. And these 3 guys just were literally having to play beach rugby against these absolute monsters. We're still on the touchline, sort of like drinking beer, going, "Come on, boys, you can do better than that." So that's one I kind of remember quite well.
Nice one. Difficult to remember, actually, when like you said, a lot of them bleed into one, don't they? But so when you go on, go for it.
I was going to say, remember, I'm 50, so everyone's. I forget stuff now. I like to do that.
Good stuff. Well, hopefully you can remember the answers to some of these questions from our listeners. So Michael's going to lead us off.
Yeah, so you were popular again amongst your fellow rock cohort. So they've provided the predominant amount of this for yourself, Craigie. The first one comes in from @Redcastle Gin Distiller. What is your favourite music venue?
Oh, I think it'll be the Glasgow Barrowlands.
Oof, I agree.
Because it's a stinky, sweaty hole, but you see some great gigs there. And if you're close to the front, it just adds to it. It's a brilliant gig. Sticky carpets, tenants in cans that's hot, and they pretend they're pints. The Barrowlands has got everything. No, the Barrowlands definitely.
And the floor moves because it's an old dance hall as well.
Yeah. And it's got the big disco ball still, which is brilliant.
That is the biggest disco ball in Europe, apparently.
Bloody hell, well. And it still worked. That's amazing. I love the Barrowlands, I must admit.
I think that's the only place me and Jason have been to a gig actually with your now wife. When you were still in the dating stage, you went to see Codeline, which I wasn't sure who was third wheeling who. Not me and Laura for reference, but in terms of you with me, and it's a great venue.
Who do you go and see?
Codeline. They won't be up your street. It's very wishy-washy Irish pop, in a good way. It was Jason's first dance as well, which I played, so I really shouldn't say that. So it was good. Jason has a follow-up question to that, probably, just to dig myself out this hole.
Yeah. So you can, from the same listener, actually, he wants to know the best gig that you can't remember.
Oh, the best gig, my best gig ever was 2008 Iron Maiden down at Twickenham.
Oof.
That was like when Maiden sort of decided to take their heads out of their asses and play the old stuff. And that was just, Cheatley got his nose broken by his brother-in-law and kind of jumping about. I remember being desperate for a piss, and they played the Clairvoyant, and like I waited for Clairvoyant, and I basically spent the length of Twickenham to get the toilets. That was the best, great day out, and the music was just peerless. So that's my best gig ever.
I can imagine Maiden in a stadium would be cool.
Yeah.
And I don't even like them. It's
like Through the Dark live, you get like so you get like sort of shivers down your spine sort of thing. But it's Maiden there, and also Kiss at Download a couple of years back was immense as well. Outside, Kiss is sort of outsider, it's just a different level of entertainment.
And loud, I imagine, as well.
Oh, it's just nuts, and it's a lot of old stuff, but you know it word for word, so you can sing along.
It's the whole joy of it. The next question comes in from @Peebles Downhill Biker, who wants to know your thoughts on the fantastic level of support for the Scottish hill walking scene that has been provided by the folk who normally go to Benidorm for their holidays.
Oh. Well, those, can I use the word cunt?
Yes, that's absolutely fine.
Those cunts, absolutely. They're the sooner they open pubs properly and like people go to Spain, the better. Less litter, less wankers, less people that have been to go outdoors and think they can go hill walking. That would do me. I mean, I'm driven to go like really remote hills at the moment to avoid them. And my anger getting sort of by some twatting trainers walking on top of a hill, I'm going, what are you doing? I'm often prone to sort of suggest their footwear is a bit shit.
Yeah, it's an awful sight, definitely. The same listener wants to know then which hill in Benidorm you plan to walk to return the favour.
Well, to be fair, Benidorm, I wouldn't walk up the hill in Benidorm. I would just sort of stick to the main strip. Maybe go to Daytona's. There's a couple of stories from Benidorm and on Kenny's 50th that I'm not going to divulge. I ended up a place one night with just a nice place one night after my second KFC on that particular evening.
I'm gonna. That's. Sorry, I've never heard that someone had 2 KFCs in one night and it was still going.
I think I won about 11 and won about 4. So I think I got in about 5 in the morning. I actually got myself walking. I think my good friend was carried in. I won't mention his name, but he's kind of your dad as well, Jason.
Fantastic. So that's the end of the listener questions. We'll move on. What are you looking forward to the most when life returns to normal?
Retiring from rugby again.
After playing, presumably, yeah?
Well, I keep saying to Callum Miller I might turn up and do a 10-minute sub at the end of a Tuesday game, but
that's all he does. So.
But I don't know. But then I don't know if to just walk up and they say you're playing a whole game. I just probably start crying because I'm just like I'm not fit enough to do that now. I could probably lift and I can scrimmage, but going from ruck to ruck, absolutely not. And the other thing is going back to the bunker for a good night out. But we could probably do that now, socially distanced.
It is big enough, but again, you have to speak to Callum Miller about that. He's the better convener. Are
we not allowed to sit outside in small groups or in groups?
We could. I think you can sit outside in groups up to. I can't actually really know the government guidance.
Is it four households? But as long as you're distant, are you not fine?
I think
my Aberdeen players thought that, and look what happened to them.
There's a reason we did that pre-call, Craigie.
we're in a bubble. You shout of fannies.
Quite right.
Anyway, on that note, we'll round up. So we plan to stay in the education sector next for a Cockerel cast with Sam Shelley to find out how much he's missing running those underlines in training. So we hope you join us for that one. For now, though, I'm Jason Thompson. He's Michael Mawdsley. Thanks to Craigie for your insights.
Hey guys.
Keep us updated on your breakfasts and hiking and Aberdeen fangirling. Look forward to a good catch.
And in Edinburgh's first game, when I get in part of that crowd of 1,000.
Good luck.
Right, guys. Thanks for that. Right, see you later. Bye.
See you there.